Good morning, guys, and welcome to Unique, Not Different with me, Shamla. Today, I have Mrs. Katherine Agong, who is a subject matter expert in transportation planning and transportation engineer. She's pursuing her PhD in those fields, actually. So she is here, and it is my pleasure to have her and her time to share, her thoughts on the state of the transportation system in Trinidad and Tobago. So, good morning, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good, Shamla. Good morning.
Good morning. So, let's begin. Let's begin on a positive note. I remember I had the minister on a couple of years ago, and he had promised to come back at the end of, their tenure to see what has been done in terms of transportation. But for your part, right, what are some of the changes, positive changes that have been made to the transportation system to make it more accessible for everyone in Trinidad and Tobago?
Right, yeah, I've seen a lot of positive changes over the last 5 years in particular. Things like drop curbs, ramps, and accessible walkovers. I've seen a lot of infrastructure development where those are concerned. However, as a transportation planner and a transportation engineer, we're able to do so much more to plan and for the needs of the traveling public, particularly those with disabilities, physical disabilities as well as intellectual disabilities.
So, what do you think are the causes for subject matter experts to sometimes neglect to provide universal access when it comes to planning for transportation and logistics?
Well, those things are really governed normally by laws and policies and by industry training. And I think in Trinidad and Tobago, we're quite deficient where those are concerned. There's also a general lack of awareness among built environment professionals in particular, and those who hold the purse strings to the needs of those with disabilities in the public transport space. So, yeah.
Okay, and what can be done to make this system more inclusive? For example, pavement, traffic control, given the current state of infrastructure of our transportation system here locally.
Could you say that again? I didn't hear you quite clearly.
Oh, no problem. What can be done to make this system more inclusive? For example, pavements and pavement and traffic controls, given the current state of infrastructure in
Yeah,
Trinidad and
right.
Tobago.
Yes, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, to make it more inclusive, definitely we need laws and policies at all levels to ensure that the needs of those with disabilities are met in public transport in particular. Again, the education system, particularly at the tertiary level, in my opinion, really needs to sensitize students to the needs of people with disabilities and to do their work in such a way that it is inclusive so that everybody, the needs of everyone, including those with physical and intellectual disabilities where transport is concerned, are met. I think there's also a need for some capacity building, some technical capacity building. What that means is to hire and to train appropriate transport planners, transportation engineers, and other allied professionals to first assess the problems, identify the problems, and to come up with solutions that are in conjunction with the people who the solutions are meant to help. So that will go a long way in improving the public transportation system for everyone, including those with disabilities.
Do we, just a question, apart from what we discussed prior, right? In terms of like budget, in order to integrate in order to integrate the planning of, let's say, this system in order to continue the process to make it more accessible and have a universal design. Do you think that it would require an exorbitant amount of resources to do this, given the current state that we are in? Because currently, I know when I discussed with the minister, the main thing that came out was, let's say, every building has to have a car park, right? But then to have that, it would create a domino effect. The building have to be accessible, then the surroundings have to be accessible in order to enter the building, so go into the car park, So how does that work to make the system more integrated rather than segregated for us to be more mainstream?
Yeah, we need definitely a new approach to land use planning. And I think that is the core of what will impact how we move between different spaces, different locations. In addition to that, I think that the funding should be allocated to these particular needs in the transportation sector, in the transportation system. And that funding should be ring-fenced, meaning that once it's allocated, it cannot be taken to do something else. And the key is to understand the problems, and to understand the problems, we as transportation planners and transportation engineers, as well as allied professionals, need very much to do more to talk to and to consult with people with disabilities, so that whichever solutions we design and implement are targeted and will be fit for purpose. That's what, to me, is necessary. We do a lot of studies over the decades, and we tend to have a little bit of an implementation problem. But with the right people on board, to like myself and others in the sector who are qualified and experienced in the field, the funding issue will be less, because we know exactly what needs to be done, so there's no wastage, there's no guessing, and so forth.
So when planning, right, there are layers, and I guess there are multiple stakeholders, let's say contractors and so on. From your knowledge, dealing with contractors and persons in different aspects of the planning stages, do you think that they are aware and have the, I guess, universal knowledge to create this universal design? And why isn't it being done?
As I said earlier, I think it's probably not being done because of lack of awareness. The people who are advocating now in this space are those who feel it and know it, so to speak, using that expression. Again, I go back to education and awareness. I know TTT is doing a really good job at the moment of showing videos of people with disabilities, and that in itself, as well as people with disabilities advocating for themselves on a day-to-day basis, will raise that awareness. And again, where the awareness is not making the change, we need laws and policies in place so that there is an incentive for these built environment professionals to make a change. What we have to really recognize right now is that people who are in charge of making decisions are in their latter stages of their career. So when they were educated, universal design wasn't a thing, really. I've been currently reading the 1967 transportation plan for my own PhD research, and it doesn't mention anything in there about universal design or public transport facilities for people with disabilities. So I'm giving everybody grace by making that statement, but that doesn't excuse, in this age of technology and free access to information 24/7, that doesn't excuse us and everybody else for not knowing what universal design is, and not knowing that we have to make changes to help everyone, including those with physical and intellectual disabilities.
You made a fantastic point there when you said that things are outdated in terms of the policies and stuff like that, and the manual we would say that we work by. That's a fantastic point. And it's not a grace, but you mentioned a problem, so we could find a solution, right? And to close off, right? What advice would you give as first steps when planning for persons with disability when it comes to transport?
The advice, I really show an interest in it, genuinely. Really show an interest day to day by, reading, like I said, there's information out there, consulting with, qualified and experienced people like myself. I mean, the sector is small in Trinidad and Tobago, but very well known. And the University of the West Indies as well is really very willing and able, I must add, to support leaders in the country and organizations who would want to make a positive change in public transportation, in the transportation system as a whole, for everyone, including those with disabilities. That's my advice, really. And to also to accept responsibility where responsibility is supposed to be had for putting these provisions in place.
Catherine, I want to say thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're a very, very busy person, integrating your life as a mom, as a person who doing her PhD, and also working a working person. So I want to say thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and I will definitely have you back in the future. And I think this was just an eye opener, and to share just the foundation as to how we should move forward. So thank you so much to everyone for tuning in to this week's segment of Unique and Different. As I always say, be good, do good. Until next week. Bye, everyone.